Jeff, do you have one of these?
Yes.
It's good. Okay.
Yes.
I think these are extra copies. You have the resolution for the first item, do you? Copy of the resolution?
Copy of the resolution.
No, I don't have it either. You have extra?
Okay, you ready? Okay.
You have an extra resolution?
No, but I have it on the,
Oh, thank you.
I have it on the computer if you want to look at
That's an extra? Oh, thank you.
it. Okay, he said 10 seconds. I
We
think
have it.
time is up.
Thank you.
Good evening and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Planning Board meeting of the Village of Rybrook. Please stand with me to recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. My name is John Grazan, and I'm going to be an acting chair for this meeting this evening. Board members in attendance with me tonight are Scott Mendelson, Don Crum, Amy Shawn, and Jeffrey Richmond. Excused is our chairman, Robert Goodman. I don't know who excused him. I didn't. And Matthew Retner also could not make it. Also in attendance are our village superintendent, Michael Novak, our attorney, Jennifer Gray, and Robert Zitt, and our planning consultant, Sarah Brown. And of course, Mr. David Heiser is with us, Board of Trustee member. He's also liaison to the board, planning board. We thank you all for being here. Amy reminded me a few times, when you come to the podium, please speak to the microphone. It's very hard to listen at home later on because unless you speak to the microphone. The agenda is relatively simple this evening. We have 3 applications and we have the approval of the minutes of the meeting. So can we go to the minutes of the meeting from the last month's April 11th, 24 minutes of the meeting? Does anybody have any comments? I did read them, but I was not at the meeting, so I have no comments.
No, not for me. No.
If there are no comments, can we have a motion to accept the minutes and second the motion?
Moved.
Second.
Michael, can you please call the roll?
Mr. Crum,
Yes.
Mr. Mendelson,
Yes.
Mr. Richmond,
Yes.
Ms. Schoen,
Yes.
Acting Chairman Grazan.
Yes, that sounds good. Okay, the first application before us is Mr. Gianfrancesco here? Welcome, sir. This application was before the board at the last meeting, at which time the public hearing was set for this evening. And basically, it's Mr. Gianfrancesco is asking for the subdivision approval to consolidate the 2 lots, if I'm not
That's correct. sir.
mistaken. Do you want to add anything from what you did last time?
No, other than,
open the public hearing.
I just want to know if he has anything to add.
this, as we view this as housekeeping.
Housekeeping, okay. I wasn't there at the last meeting, but I'd be remiss if I don't ask you. You have this property for how long, how much of a time?
I recently came in possession of
Yeah.
the property.
Was it 2 lots before you bought it?
It was 2 lots from when it
2
was
separate
developed.
owners or the one owner?
They were under different ownership, but it was one owner.
One owner, okay,
And the site development, as you can see, was a single site development
exactly.
encompassing 2
Now,
lots.
you don't live there, do you?
No, my
because-
office is there.
Because your survey shows that that's your office, that your owner's resident address was given as at that place.
Right.
Okay.
That's correct, sir.
Now, I understand at the last meeting, somebody raised the question, you have no intention of developing this property.
No.
Not that we mind, but we just don't
Actually-
like to have a sequential steps.
Understood.
Yeah.
Actually, the merger will prevent a future
Okay,
subdivision.
yeah, all right, fine, thank you. Okay, now is the time to open up the public hearing. Can we have a motion and second?
Moved.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Crum,
Yes.
Mr. Mendelson,
Yes.
Mr. Richmond,
Yes.
Ms. Schoen,
Yes.
Chairman Grazan.
Yes. Does anybody have any comments? Are there any comments from the public? Are there any comments from the staff? Well, that was a fast one. Can we have a motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
Michael, call the roll once again.
Mr. Crum,
Yes.
Mr. Mendelson,
Yes.
Mr. Richmond,
Yes.
Ms. Schoen,
Yes.
Chairman Grzan.
Yes, please. We did ask Mr. Zit to prepare the resolution, which he did. I thank you, sir. And can you read it, please? No, you don't have to go through
You can
all
summarize
whereabouts. No, please.
Sure?
Absolutely.
All right.
Voiceover audition.
Resolution entitled Subdivision Lot Merger Approval for 545.5 Westchester Avenue and 0 Hawthorne Avenue. Whereas the applicant, on behalf of the owner, Castanea LLC, submitted an application seeking approval of a lot merger pursuant to subdivision regulations concerning the consolidation of the properties located at 545.5 Westchester Avenue and 0 Hawthorne Avenue. Now therefore be it resolved that the Village of Rybrook Planning Board hereby grants preliminary subdivision plat approval as shown on the application materials enumerated above and as more fully set forth in the written resolution dated May 9th, 2024.
Okay,
Comment?
any comments?
There's a,
Hey, Sam.
Hop up to the podium, please.
Please speak from the podium.
Didn't we close the public?
No, we didn't.
No, it's still
Still open. We can entertain a comment, yes?
open. Close the public hearing.
Oh,
But
We
sorry.
did close it.
I did ask if there was any comments.
Let's
Can
reopen
I
it.
make an exception?
let's reopen.
Okay.
Second.
Michael, please call the roll to reopen the public hearing.
Mr. Crum,
Yes.
Mr. Mendelson,
Yes.
Mr. Richmond,
Yes.
Ms.
Yes.
Schoen,
Yes.
Chairman Grzan.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, I wasn't at this first meeting, so I don't know what's going on. I live next door, 5 Hawthorne Avenue.
Sure.
I just want to know.
Could you speak into the mic?
I just want to know what does this mean, merging the properties and subdivision or whatever?
Well, from what I understand, there are two lots right now. They're owned by the same owner, and the only thing that there is imaginary line on the survey or the deed that shows the two lots. Since they are with the same owner, the owner has come to us to merge those for the purpose to have a one tax bill, one insurance bill, and one name, so to speak. Nothing physically changes.
Okay. Okay.
Mr. Gianfrancesco, is there anything that you would like to add to what I said?
No, sir, you've done a great job.
Thank you, sir.
So nothing.
So that's-
Parking lot's still there.
Everything stays the same, just the line gets erased.
Right. That fence is still there. The fence is there. The other fence is there.
No
Okay.
change to you.
I just had
She
to
just
know.
knocked on my
No,
door.
it's good to
See,
come.
Because,
coming out.
it's
good to come.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
That's what a public hearing is.
Can we have a motion to close the public hearing? And I imagine there will be no more comments.
Moved.
Second.
Michael, call the roll, please.
Mr. Crum,
Yes.
Mr. Mendelson,
Yes.
Mr. Richmond.
Yes.
Ms. Schoen,
Yes.
Chairman Grzan.
Yes. Now, we did read the resolution. Do we have to have a motion for the second time to approve the resolution?
I would make that motion, yes.
Can we please have the motion to approve the resolution?
Moved.
Second.
Mr. Crum,
Yes.
Mr. Mendelson,
Yes.
Mr. Richmond,
Yes.
Ms. Schoen,
Yes.
Chairman Grzan.
Yes. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you, good luck.
That was relatively painless. Right.
Okay. The second application before us is for the first time, and it's on 177 Betsy Brown Road. Basically, the applicant is looking to add the addition to the existing single-family home. The reason that this application is before the board, because under our site plan approval, if there is more than 50% increase in the gross floor area from the existing home to the new home, it triggers the site plan approval. And this addition would basically add an increase of about 75%. Michael, was that proper explanation that I just gave?
Said it perfectly.
Thank you. Your name, sir?
Okay, my name is Stephen Marchesani. I'm the architect for the,
Okay, Mr. Marchesani.
okay, as you suggested, we're proposing a addition to the residence of 177 Betsy Brown Road. We added 1,555 square feet, which is more, which, as you explained, is more than the 50%, which is why we're here. Basically, what we did was we added 492 square feet, section here, to the footprint of the existing building. The main additional square footage is building up on the second floor over the existing footprint of the building. The proposed addition and deck meets all the zoning requirements for the R10 zone. We also have already done a deep hole test and have an engineer on board to do a perk test and design a stormwater management system for the addition, or for the whole property, actually. And we received a memo from Hardesty Hanover. We're not removing any trees, but we will be doing new landscaping in the front of the house, which will provide a plan to show that.
Do you have the survey with the contour lines? Because I looked at the survey that was in the package, and it does not have the contour lines.
No, it does not.
If I'm not mistaken, I walked by in the front of the property today. On the back, the property tends to slope down.
Yes.
So my question to you would be if there would be any work in that slope, in that lower area of the site.
No, that's basically where we'll end up putting the stormwater system.
Well, so there will be some work in that area then.
Yeah, basically, not all the way in the back, but, just behind the addition.
There is also on a survey, there is a stone wall that looks like there is a piece of property behind that wall. Is that correct?
In the rear,
Yeah. Did I read that correctly?
yeah, this is the rear of the property.
Mm-hmm.
There's another,
There's houses from
Arlington, I think.
Arlington on that side.
There is like a small lot on the back, very small. I don't have my.
That's not it, John.
That's not it. Maybe I was looking at something else.
That's Westchester, that's the one we just did.
No. Okay. I would check my notes while we. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, well, that's basically it, unless you have any questions.
Now, I looked at it, and I think Michael triggered my thinking on this one. Did you? We may want you to verify your impervious surface square footage.
Do that?
I think you just to the existing footage, you simply added the deck, but I think the footprint of the building is bigger than before. So I think there is and the reason I'm raising this, because if you are under 400 square feet, you don't have to do the stormwater management.
Well, we already know we're over that.
You are over
The-
that.
The addition,
Yeah.
we're adding 492 square feet,
Yeah.
plus the deck was, I forget the number, but
Yeah.
it was another couple of hundred
Okay,
over that. So we know we have to
Okay.
do the whole site.
all right. You can always request a waiver of that, you know that.
Not of stormwater.
No?
It's not in the zoning code.
Oh, that's which one? That's the construction management plan that we can waive. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah,
Survey.
survey, yeah, okay. But do me a favor, take a look at the impervious surface. I
Check it.
looked myself, and I think you are off by about a couple hundred feet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Before the public hearing, he needs his whole stormwater plan, right?
Yeah, I met with their engineer on site, and they did a perk test about a week and a half ago. They did a perk test, so it takes, maybe 2 weeks to do everything and
Oh, so
resubmit.
in the back, in the low point, you did the perk test in the low point, right? Of the site?
No, they did it about where they're showing the 4 cul-de-sacs on there. Right around there is where they
Okay, so
did.
that would not be done in the lower point on the site? Okay,
No.
all right,
No, all dry wells have to be 10 feet away from the property line minimum.
okay, all right. Is there any other questions from the staff before we open the before we schedule the public hearing? Now open the public hearing.
This isn't really
Sarah,
a,
you have anything?
No, we covered my comment about the trees and the landscaping, and there is actually a zoning bulk regulations table on the plan.
That big maple tree on the front of the house, that would stay, correct? Yeah, it's a beautiful tree.
I guess this is just a question for the homeowner. Microphone? Just a question for the homeowner. You're definitely sure you want a deck versus a patio? It's almost at grade.
They're neighbors.
Oh, your neighbor, sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, sorry. Wrong assumption, sorry about that. So to the architect, I mean, the deck is almost at grade. There's a step or so?
Right, but
The homeowner definitely finds benefit in a deck versus some sort of
yeah,
patio.
where the patio is now is where the addition is going. So from that point, then it starts sloping away. In other words, right now the patio is here,
Right.
but that's where the new addition is gonna go. So from that point back is when it starts
Mhm.
falling off. That's why the deck.
But, okay, but what's the difference on the far side of the deck then? You're saying
3-4 feet, I think.
Maybe not that much, a couple of feet,
Yeah.
just a couple of feet,
Yeah.
2.5 feet, something like that.
whatever, okay.
When
I
you
mean-
said that you're doing plantings, I assume you're referring to foundation plants?
Yes. For the
And have you any idea the type of plants you're considering?
No, haven't really. I just going from the memo. I haven't really thought about it yet too much. If you have something, in mind, or
Okay. I know it's not a public hearing, Jennifer. Jennifer, hi, and Rob. It's not a public hearing, but I think I want to hear what the neighbors have to say. It can help us down the road and can just speed the process, so the applicant knows what the concern is and maybe they can deal with it. So if you don't mind, you can come up and give us your input. Your name and your name.
This is Bradley Lawrence. We live at 175 Betsy Brown Road. So we were just coming in to find out more because with the remnants of Hurricane Ida, we ended up with 6 feet of water, and anytime there's any kind of water issue from their house now, it goes right into our basement and pushes through the wall. So we just kind of wanted to make sure that anything that was done it wouldn't pitch it further towards our house.
Looking into the house from the street, you are to the right.
To the right,
Yes.
correct, yeah.
I can
Slightly
I
down
can
the hill.
understand, I can understand your
Yeah.
concerns, yes.
So we were just trying to figure out like how anything that would be changed, not necessarily to the height of their house, but if it would affect any of the water flow.
Right, the gradation of the land, would it slope towards us?
Right, that would cause us to get more water or an increase in water from what we already
Okay.
kind of get.
Who wants to talk? Mr. Marchesani, go ahead. Thank you for your input.
yeah, we're not going to be regrading, directing anything towards you. In fact, we have to do a stormwater management system, so we'll be picking up more water and holding it on site as opposed to now it just runs down the hill. So if anything from the house will be caught and put into the dry wells. So that should eliminate any, there won't be any additional water.
So in essence, the property is not being regraded, so whatever the slope topography is now is what it's gonna be. Do understand that during an Ida, Irene, Sandy, Lee situation, you're still gonna get the 6 feet of water, okay? Let's be honest, I mean, I'd rather be upfront. But they are required to capture all the runoff from the house, the driveway, the garage, and handle that on-site through an underground retention system. So as Mr. Marchesani said, there's going to be a net reduction in runoff or sheet flow that is on the property.
So
Right.
like these Coltex or underground?
It's basically underground retention systems or dry wells.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Marchesani, the existing house, the roof water, the gutters, are they going into some sort of a catch basin or just the surface?
I don't believe so, I think they're just,
So you should, I think you should definitely improve your situation with this, with the revised design, yeah. Yeah. Any other comments?
does it make sense to build a small berm to make it go more down the hill, or is that just make somebody else's problem?
I mean, in regards to our code actually talks about not impeding the flow of any sheet flow and not stopping sheet flow. There's nothing in the code that requires any sheet flow to be captured, either from a stormwater perspective.
Okay.
You know, that's something that Hudson Engineering, who's doing the designs, should look at and evaluate if there is a benefit to that.
It might give it more room to seep in
It's,
as it goes
it's,
down.
all the water is basically sloping into the back because the property is high up in the front and does grade about 2-3 feet towards the back roughly, so, but some of it does go to the right because there is a elevation change on the right of maybe 4 feet, 5 feet, something like that roughly.
But we'll be catching more of it now than is being caught now, presently.
I don't think there is, right now, if I'm not mistaken, there is no wall, stone wall between the two properties.
I don't think so.
It's just flat land. I think the stone wall is to the left, on the left side of the, yeah, okay.
Talk to Mike, Steve,
Yeah.
what he thinks.
Okay, but take a look at it, and when you do the design, as Mike said, you are required to have all the runoff contained on site now. Okay? Thank you so much, and why don't we schedule the public hearing for the next meeting? Can we have do we need a motion to schedule the public hearing? I think we do, right?
Yes, and I have a resolution prepared.
I know, Asher.
Second.
Call the roll, Michael.
Mr. Crum,
Yes.
Mr. Mendelson,
Yes.
Mr. Richmond.
Yes.
Ms. Schoen,
Yes.
Chairman Guzan.
Yes,
Thank you.
and Sarah, can you please read that resolution?
Whereas the owners have submitted an application for approval of a site plan involving a first and floor second addition to the existing dwelling and the construction of a patio on the property located at 177 Betsy Brown Road. Now therefore be it resolved, the planning board will hold a public hearing on June 13th, 2024 at 6:30 PM in Village Hall. Be it further resolved that the applicant is hereby directed to comply with section 250-40 of the Village Code regarding notification of the public hearing.
Thank you. Second, motion to, do we need to approve it? No, we just vote, yeah. Okay? Thank you. We see you next month. Okay, next one on our agenda is 975 Anderson Hill Road. This application was referred to the planning board at the last Board of Trustees meeting, so it's before us for the first time. The application is basically for the redevelopment of the project site that's currently occupied by the Doral Arrowwood Hotel and a conference center, which we all know has been closed since 2019. I think, gentlemen, you have already stood up, so I do want to welcome you to our first meeting, which I know for a fact is not going to be our last,
Probably not.
as we walk this process through the project, through the process. I think I can speak for the Chairman Goodman, who is not here, and the board members and our staff. We're looking forward to work with you. I have read quite a few documents that you have submitted so far, and if you continue like that, I think the life is going to be easy.
That's great. We really
Yes,
appreciate
yes,
those opening
yes,
comments.
yes. As some of you already know, on this project, the planning board has a somewhat unique role. We have an advisory role, but we also have the approval authority role. So you're going to see us wearing two hats. And as I said before, the board did refer the application to us, and in some cases, they're looking for our comments. In some cases, they're looking for our report and recommendation, as the case may be. And the documents that we have now before us are basically notice of the lead agency declaration, draft DEI statement that you folks have submitted, a scoping document, the project concept plan, and zoning petition. I think I have talked to the chairman and the staff prior to the meeting, and I think what we would like to accomplish this evening, kind of proceed in a somewhat of a sequential. First of all, we would like you to give us a brief presentation of the project. Some of us have been at your first presentation when you did it for the village as a whole, but a few board members have not been at that presentation, so it would be very helpful. Make it brief. You don't have to go too much. Then I did ask Jennifer and Rob to give us an overview of the approval process and the SEGRA guidelines that would be applicable to us. It's kind of complicated, so at least we know what's waiting for us down the road. And then the bulk of the meeting, we want to devote to review and comment on the draft DIS scoping documents. It is our intention to have our comments back to the Board of Trustees prior to their May 28th meeting. If necessary, we can have a resolution this evening that we will authorize the chairman to sign off on the letter when the letter is prepared by the staff and submit that before the 28th. I think it's important that we move along that line. And then the last thing, we need to dispense with the lead agency selection reply form. Does anybody wants to challenge the Board of Trustees to be a lead agency? Speak your piece. I think we will, chairman would sign that letter. We don't need any resolution or anything for him to sign that letter.
You should just have a motion.
Have a motion.
In fact, we can handle
Can-
that now.
can we just dispense with
let's
that right
Check
now?
that off the list, right?
So can we have a motion to have the chairman sign off on the lead agency selection reply form to the Board of Trustees?
Second.
Michael, please call the roll.
Mr. Crum,
Yes.
Mr. Mendelson,
Yes.
Mr. Richmond,
Yes.
Ms. Schoen,
Yes.
Chairman Guzan.
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Okay. You are Mr. Schwartz?
Steinmetz.
Oh, Steinmetz. And Mr. Schwartz?
We got both of us tonight.
You tricked me. You told me that Mr. Schwartz was going to be here tonight. Yeah, but you see, I thought he was going to be at the
Still a
podium.
trick question, but she was right.
But I should have known better because I have seen you before,
have,
sir.
but-
Yes, I have seen you
But I
before.
appreciate making sure you knew who was who. So,
And
let me
is
introduce our
Mr.
team.
Cohn here?
Yes.
Welcome, sir. Thank you so much. Yes. I was the guy that asked you about the golf course, remember?
Right, at the board meeting. Right.
Okay, please go.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. David Steinmetz from the law firm of Zarin and Steinmetz. Really very pleased to be here. Appreciate the welcome and the initial comments.
Yes.
I'm here obviously in connection with 975 Anderson Hill Road. I'm joined by my partner, Brad Schwartz, right? And I'm very pleased that both Charles Cohn and Dave Fogel from Cohn Brothers Realty are here this evening for this kickoff, along with my friend and colleague Diego Villarreal from JMC Engineering and Planning.
Okay.
We have been working together as a team on this project. As the chair indicated, we have already conducted a number of pre-submission informal meetings, as well as some formal meetings to begin the process in front of the Board of Trustees. In a nutshell, because we're going to make a brief presentation, mixed-use project to breathe some life back into a vital piece of property here in your village. Conference center, hotel lodge with residential component within it, additional residential units in a separate freestanding building, affordable housing units in accordance with the village's requirements, a really wonderful array of amenities for the hotel lodge guests, and a commercial/medical building with a wellness component that Mr. Cohn is going to speak about in a moment. As the chair indicated, we did file a petition for rezoning. Really what we were doing and why we are here at the beginning of this process is we have suggested a few fairly minor technical modifications to the existing PUD zone that would allow and facilitate this project to go forward. The village board, as was indicated, declared its intent to be lead agency. Sounds like you really don't want to be lead agency, huh?
No.
I can tell. You have punted that back efficiently to the Board of Trustees. They will be the lead agency for secret purposes. but we know we're going to be here. We look forward to being here. In particular, we know that you have specific jurisdiction over wetlands and steep slopes. We're prepared to talk about that tonight and as we go forward. And as the chair indicated, the essence of tonight really is to begin the secret process and to get back to the Board of Trustees for the public scoping session that is scheduled for May 28th. We're really pleased that your professional staff has already met with us, allowed us to get out in front with as much information as quickly as we could. We did submit a rather extensive scope in advance. You have a 24-page scope. Those of us on our development team have obviously been through this before. As I think your council both know, we look forward to working with them, with Sarah, Mike, maybe not so much. Just kidding, Mike.
It's a payback time, huh?
No. He's a nice guy. All good. And we are prepared to make a very brief presentation
Please.
about the project and then really engage with you on the scoping outline. Charles, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you so much for.
It's just a joke, Mike.
Thanks so much.
I know.
Thanks so much for allowing us to be here with you.
Please,
tonight.
we are happy to have you.
We're excited to move this project
Can you
along.
speak into the microphone?
I'm sorry.
Great. We're excited to move this project along, of course, with your input and your good thinking. As you can see from the initial card, the 91 acres, of which 84 is in Rybrook. The total number of hotel rooms is 220. That is comprised of the Lodge Hotel and the Conference Center rooms.
Mr. Khan, pardon me for interrupting you, because I was going to ask that question before. As I see it, there are 3 separate parcels of
Correct.
land that you own, 2 within the Rybrook and 1 within the state of Connecticut.
Correct.
Now, the 84 acres, is that just the project site, or does that also include the property within the Doral Greens, namely the greens,
Yes.
the golf course?
It does.
It does include the, okay.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
That's right.
Thank you.
So the 220 hotel rooms is approximately 70, 75 conference center rooms, and the rest are in the hotel side. The 115 residences include 40 residences in the hotel building and a separate standalone apartment house of about 70, 75 units, of which 10% of all of the residences will be affordable housing in accordance with your code. There's a total of 1,372 parking spaces, taking into account the existing surface parking, plus more parking that were added, including underground parking under the hotel structure. There's a separate building on the former driving range, which is the Wellness Center Medical Office Building, which is about 50,000 square feet. The conference center is connected and integrated into the hotel structure. It's to the west of it, and we have many amenities, including 3 restaurants and ballroom that can be broken down. It'll be, I think, the largest ballroom in the county, I think. But it will be able to be divided into 6 smaller ballrooms. And we will have meeting rooms in the conference center, a theater, and it's an exciting plan. As you can see right now, this is the existing location of the hotel structure and the existing parking and the existing tennis courts. Yes, please.
Very quickly. Again, just for the record, Diego Villarreal with JMC. This presentation is essentially the same presentation that was given to the Board of Trustees, with the exception of these next 2 slides. I brought 2 exhibits in there that really speak to the wetlands and the steep slopes on the property under the existing conditions. This plan was the existing conditions plan that was submitted, but I highlighted the wetland line and the delineation of that wetland on the property. It really follows that western boundary. It's the watercourse there between the town of Harrison and the village of Rybrook, and it follows that property line. And you'll see a bulk of it is actually off of the property. Some of it does extend on, including the water body or the pond or the lake that exists at the bottom. And then we added that 100-foot buffer per your code requirements. We wanted to make sure we showed that buffer area and the location of it. And what you see is a lot of it is already within disturbed areas, portions of the golf course, the existing pump house, for instance. There's some other improvements and other things that have been constructed within that buffer area. What you'll see is as we go through our site plans, we really respect that line. There's not much of an encroachment in that besides some grading, removing of some of this infrastructure, the improvements to the pond as well, things like that. The structure itself is being pulled away from it and moved a little bit further north, and it's being tiered into the hillside. So the intention is really to limit the disturbance within that adjacent area and not extend into it any further than what's there right now. Next is the steep slopes map that we prepared and included in there. And again, we broke it down into the categories in accordance with your steep slopes ordinance. And what you'll see right away, I'll just zoom into this area here, for instance, and this just shows the different colors in the categories. The steep slopes that exist on the property are pretty much all fabricated or man-made steep slopes as a result of the golf course construction. The mounds that are between the holes, you'll see the fairways are flat as can be, and then you have these areas where they created, those of you who have walked the property recently, you see those mounds on either side. That's really the extent of the steep slopes on the property, as well as some areas of the building where the parking lot slopes down to the main entrance, for instance. So this is not your traditional undisturbed wooded steep slope area that you may encounter on some development sites. It's really been fabricated and man-made over time with the development of the Doral Arrowwood Hotel. So just wanted to hit that quickly, and then I'm going to turn it back over to Charles. And he could go through the rest.
So this is the new master plan, which shows the Doral Greens reimagining of the golf course as with walking trails, and we've been working with them on finalizing a plan which is ongoing. We've moved the hotel structure up so we have a view of the pond and tennis courts to the southwest, and below that is the apartment structure with the 70 some odd units, and below that is the medical office space. This is a view from the other side of the pond facing east, and we envisioned a lake house, which would be a structure that would pretty much be built on the land that overhangs the water a little bit. The architectural style is Adirondack style, which we thought was in keeping with the general area and with historic references. This is looking at the entrance and drop-off of the hotel. This is to the southwest. This is the drop-off for the conference center. This is a view from the main floor of the hotel overlooking the backyard, so to speak. This is an overview of what you just saw, and it shows we have a grand lobby with a hotel restaurant in the rear that overlooks the terrace. On either side is two destination restaurants. To the right are hotel rooms, and to the right is the wellness hotel. To the left is the conference center hotel. This is a section showing the elevation from the drop-off. What we wanted to do is create an atrium effect. I was always recalled going to Doral Arrowwood and thought I was going to bang my head when I walked in. And the ballroom is below the lobby. The property has a slope, and we're taking advantage of that. This is the residential building, which is in the center. We'll show you what that looks like. Again, the same architectural style, has its own swimming pool, and it's in between it's to one side of the tennis courts and pickleball courts. This is a section showing you the elevation of that as well. This is the medical office building, front facade. It's a two-story structure, and this is a section of that building.
Could you describe to me, please, what is intended to be located in the medical office building? Are they going to be doctor's offices?
Pretty much. That's the idea. Diagnostic doctor's offices. We're going to be exploring a relationship with a major hospital network.
There are requirements, of course, with the New York State Department of Health as well as the Westchester County Department of Health. And I didn't see the New York State Department of Health as one of the agencies involved, because there will be hazardous waste coming out of those buildings, collection sites. I just would like to be sure that we have complete understanding of what will be taking place in those medical offices.
The New York State, and whether or not, again, that gets into the tenancy of the building itself, and that's something I think we need to discuss. But typically, that would not be included, and I'll allow, Jennifer can chime in on that as well, I'm sure. Typically, that, because it's specifically associated with the user within the building, is not something we would include, but I'm sure that's something we'll discuss and get back to you.
Now, is the medical office, as you see it, for the residents and the guests, or is it for general public?
General public,
General
I
public,
believe. But
okay.
I see it as a complement to having medical offices on site. That's all part of the vision for the successful reimagining of the site.
Sure. Okay.
This is a view from Kingsfield to show that pretty much our hotel structure is pretty much covered by the existing trees.
One question?
Yes.
Again?
Sure.
That's with full leaves, okay? Have you taken photographs without the leaves tree?
That'll be part of the EIS process.
We're going to discuss
Okay.
that when we do the scoping document, yeah.
Just to answer that, just to, again, try to be proactive as we can, knowing the season we're coming into, leaf-on conditions, we actually went out and took photographs at certain strategic locations, knowing that we're going to be in the summer months, so we can do both.
Okay.
Thank you.
Next slide, please. This is an overview, bird's eye view of the hotel. And this is a little bit of the of what you would see from Doral Greens. And this is another perspective of the hotel from Doral Greens.
That's from the emergency access. Explain that,
Correct.
Diego.
There's that interconnect that exists between the Doral Arroyo, the former Doral Arroyo Hotel, and the Doral Greens. It's in the back of the parking lot. This is directly at that
fire
interconnect that
exit.
would be main.
We maintain that.
Yes.
Just for frame of, Just for frame of reference, how many hotel rooms were at the prior existing hotel?
360.
So the hotel, the front of the hotel, and the hotel would be facing the pond,
The back of the
pond,
hotel. The
and
back.
the purchase college area.
Correct.
All
The
right.
back of the hotel.
All right. So as you go on the east side, there would be, the land is going higher up, correct?
Correct.
And we have all the hotel rooms face to the west.
All right.
Yeah, we could go back to another exhibit.
So the highest elevation of the hotel that one would see would be from the west, from the pond area.
Correct.
That's
So
correct.
we go back to, you have this
Yeah,
exhibit,
okay.
this is that highest
I got you.
elevation.
Okay.
Okay, I'll just go to the end here and we can finish.
Yeah,
up.
we'll make-
There you go.
And this is, gives you an overview of the idea of how to re-envision the Doral Greens, part of the golf course that the homeowners would see. Rewilding the site, restoring the ecosystem that once existed, regrading, removing, cleaning, a lot of new plantings, a lot of natural, nature-like plantings.
So when we eventually get to the second phase of the project, which would be the site approval, that portion of the project would be included in the site approval.
Yeah,
Because you are disturbing and grading, and so that will be included.
correct,
Okay.
that's part of it.
All right.
But not a golf course anymore.
That's
Sorry.
okay.
And that's it, that's the.
I never did like the par five.
Too small, right? Too small.
Too long.
Really?
Yeah, for me, it was too long.
Any questions for me?
You folks that have not seen this before, any questions?
That was in December, I saw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we have presented.
Thank you, Mr. Cohen.
Yeah, beautiful, I love your concept.
Thank you.
And the quality, you know, the quality envisioning, yeah.
We're all really excited about that.
We are looking forward to that lobby. You always talk about the lobby.
The whole idea is, I want you to feel that you are away. You've been transported somewhere.
Yeah, it's a good concept. Yeah.
So we have submitted to you a fairly extensive yet conventional scoping outline. We have covered all of the.
Yeah, before we get into that, I would like Jennifer and Rob to walk us through the second point that I wanted to cover at this meeting. Now, you did give us a memo this afternoon on a SECRA. I think it was a very well written. I think I can take a final exam on SECRA, just having read that memo today. Okay, so focus more on what the board, the planning board, would be looking forward to.
Sure, yeah, so I won't focus on the overall process, because as
Yes.
Chairman just mentioned, you do have a memo. The applicant has that memo too, kind of going through from start to finish what
And
those
there is a
steps
table
are.
1 in their scoping document that kind of points out all the approvals that would be required.
Right.
Yeah.
So what we're focused on tonight is review of the scoping outline. Scoping is a required process as of the 2019 amendments to SECRA. It used to be optional. And the purpose is really to narrow the issues to be studied, to weed out any irrelevant environmental issues that don't need to be studied to the level if they are studied in an environmental impact statement. The scoping outline, as Mr. Steinmetz mentioned, is pretty comprehensive. It is also pretty standard. For those of you that were with us for the 900 King Street application, you'll see it's very similar to that one. It has a lot of the same elements.
Pardon me, take a look at that thing that I circled in red. Is that misspelled? Because I kept reading it. The fact that you said it right now, I had to call that.
Pointing out typos in my memo.
No. Is that correct what I was reading there? Not irrelevant and not.
Eliminate consideration. That is a typo. Yes, you are correct. So that not should be struck.
So there is no not there.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
that makes a big difference.
Okay, it does. Thank you. So getting back to the scoping outline, what we should focus on tonight, we review all the categories that you have comments on, but I think it's most important for you to focus on the wetlands and the steep slopes categories within the scoping outline, since those are the areas within your jurisdiction. And ultimately, at the end of this process, not only will the Board of Trustees issue a finding statement, but you as an involved agency, meaning an agency that has approval authority over one or more aspects of the project, will also have to issue a finding statement on your area of jurisdiction. So it's important for you to make sure that you have everything in there that you need to make those findings.
One of the questions that I have, Jennifer, is that we can dispense with the scoping outline, which I think we will do tonight. But we also have before us the zoning petition and the concept plan. So my question to you and to the applicant, can we really discuss zoning petition to some sort of finality until the draft environmental statement is prepared?
So we can talk about that. I think that, right, so the question is, can you offer meaningful, I guess the question is, can you offer meaningful comments to the Board of Trustees without having more information and more studies and more analysis on the zoning being proposed, the zoning amendments being proposed, and the
I think
concept plan?
we all read it. I mean,
Yeah.
there is only one number, there that's of concern to me, and I'm sure it's going to be concern to many people. And can we focus on that question of height until the final document or the draft document is prepared?
Yeah, so
we see the alternatives, we see the views, and so on.
So what might be helpful to the Board of Trustees is to get your preliminary comments, any comments that you do have at this stage, knowing that, you might not have all the information yet because there are still a lot of studies that need to be done.
And I could be mistaken, but I think the project, with the exception of height, pretty much complies with the existing PUD zoning regulations.
Right, so what would be, I think, helpful to the Board of Trustees is to get your preliminary comments on what's before you within
Okay.
the time frame set forth in the code. And then the Board of Trustees will probably re-refer it back to you for further comment once the plans are more developed.
Because I think it would be
you'll-
almost unfair to the applicant for us to pass judgment until we have a
Yeah.
full picture of what we're looking at.
You'll also get an opportunity to review the DEIS once it's submitted and
I'm
offer
aware
your
of that,
comments
yes,
as an
yes.
involved agency to the Board of Trustees. So there'll be a lot of stops along the
So
way
if
where
I
you'll
look-
be able
if
to
I look
communicate to the Board of
the time
Trustees.
clock for the different approvals, when do you expect that the zoning petition and zoning code amendments would be handled?
So, and I was
Without
just
recommendation
looking at
to the
this
board. I know,
earlier
of course, the
today.
board approves it, but when would we have some sort of a report and recommendation to the board on that?
Oh, a report and recommendation
Yes,
on the zoning.
zoning code amendments, yes.
Like I said,
No,
I
not
think
tonight,
it would
not
be
that for
helpful
sure.
for them to have your preliminary comments sooner rather than later, but that won't be likely your only opportunity to provide comments. You can provide further comments later on in the process as
Mr.
well.
Chairman, the applicant be heard just to maybe help this discussion?
Please jump in, of
I-
course.
I
Yeah.
would never step on Jen's comments,
No,
but I
no,
would.
yeah.
First of all, on your comment on height, you're right. That's probably the single most significant change that we are proposing. We would absolutely not want you to comment on it until we've had a chance to present to you the data, the visuals, and the fact we've already preliminarily concluded that this building was properly designed and that we've taken this into account, but we know we've got to unveil that through the process. So we appreciate the fact that you identified that. We have too. We're confident that we're going to be able to convince the village that we've mitigated the adverse impacts to the maximum extent practicable. In terms of the zoning, I completely agree with council on this. All we're looking for at this point is an acknowledgement that indeed you do think that hotel, lodge, residential, some kind of wellness makes some sense on this property and is worth exploring. No one can vote on that zoning, as Jen and Bob will tell you. We can't ask the village to vote on the zoning. That's an action under SECRA. We can't ask for that until we've completed SECRA.
But
So,
you know, that's almost given. You're replacing the existing.
so we're beginning the process. We got a ways to go. The most important thing is that we've identified the things that you want us to study: the height, the wetlands.
I
the
think,
slopes.
yes, of course, and I think that's going to come out as we go through the scoping document. So I suggest that we just go page by page, item by item, and see who has comments. Most of the items, I don't think we have any comments, because it's kind of what we have seen before, and it's basically what the requirements are. To some degree, it's a boilerplate.
Yes, I mean,
Yeah.
we put an awful lot in here because we don't normally present a scoping right out of the box. We don't normally ask for a positive declaration right out of the box.
But you did, and we thank you. You know, you did. You
got it.
prepared it.
And you understand why we did it.
Yeah, just before I just want to have one thing satisfied of one of my concerns regarding the height.
Yes.
Have you been in contact with the airport?
So at this juncture, we're not in contact with the airport. We're preparing to do the studies, which will require that we contact
Thank
the
you.
airport.
That's all I wanted to
We didn't
hear.
want to get out in front of that. That would be inappropriate until such time as you confirmed
Yeah,
what we needed
as
to
long
study.
as you said what you just said, I'm good with it.
However, I do think it's important to identify that we did consider location, distance to the airport, FAA regulations, heights and clearances. We would not have
Communication.
gotten as far as we are now with the height and everything else. Those things were considered in the preliminary planning process, but now we have to go through that formal process.
Okay. And that would be, would that be, some of that would be enumerated in the DIS?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes,
Yeah,
there'll
all
be
right, sure.
information.
Okay, Jennifer, who's going to lead well, let me put it this way. Who is going to be writing the memo to the Board of Trustees from the Planning Board? Okay, so I suggest you take over the meeting. All right? And get as much information as you need for your memo.
Right. Talk into the mic, please.
Thank you, Amy. All right, so as the chairman suggested, we can just go page by page, and hopefully everyone's reviewed the scoping document. It is lengthy, but worth the read. And we'll just start at page 1. Does anyone have any comments on the introduction section?
I do. This goes probably to perhaps JMC Engineering. As you'll see, a lot of my comments are going to be about the pond, the lake, and in the intro, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bullets down, it would be helpful to me somewhere in the document, and I know this is going to be part of the process, but you delineate the size of what you're calling the existing water body, the size and volume of the existing water body, and what its primary uses are now. Perhaps now is formally, prior to 2019. And I see it's an important element of, the design of the whole site. So I don't discount where you're going with it. I don't take away anything that you're trying to do, but I would like more, and ultimately, I'll have comments later on about, comparing and contrasting what is there and what, how it's going to change and what the effects of that change will be.
Yeah, and what the level is going to be in that pond.
Right.
The water levels and yes, depth,
If you want, I could skip ahead to that section if you want, unless you want to go page to page.
I was just going to say, the specifics that you're referring to really belong in section
Section
5.
Well, in my opinion, section 6, we're 5 and 6.
Stormwater for the elevations, some of it is going to be within section 5 with the wetlands and water courses because of the pond and the nature of it, but it could go in either place.
Right.
Bottom line is it needs to be included, and we could get it there just where the appropriate location is. I think we should have that discussion when we get there. The introduction was really just intended to touch on the specific improvements that were going to be done and generalize them so that it gives you an intro into the balance of the document, so.
Right, but I'd sort of like to have it documented somewhere, like it was, like we all know, there was X number of hotel rooms, and now there's Y. And we all say, okay, it goes from 320 to 220, oh, that sounds good, whatever. But I'd like to, and one of the reasons I say this is like almost everybody that comes before the planning board, one of their top concerns is about stormwater, how is it going to affect me? We just had the one right before you.
Yeah.
The people came in even before the public comment period, and their only comment about this whole new addition was, I'm flooded every time there's a huge storm. How is this going to affect me? We're already starting to hear community comments, and even some neighboring communities saying, hey, this is 80 acres, or maybe some of those acres aren't being touched. How is this going to affect, which is part of your document.
It is.
But I have some specific comments on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Simons, on that first paragraph, I think Mr. Cohn answered my question, where you said the project site does not include the Royal Green residences on eastern side of the former PUD, but it does include the land that belonged to the golf course.
So just so you know, the terminology we use is the fingers of green, or the fingers in between the rows of townhouses.
Could you make it clear in this that that
Absolutely.
land is included as part of the project?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, just so you're aware, the Board of Trustees, as lead agency, certainly knows that.
Okay.
We've discussed that with them. I think staff knows that. And one of the reasons we are working with our neighbors at Doral Greens is because our property is near theirs. It's in between their townhouses. We know we need to deal with it.
Yeah, the map, which was included in the documents, it seemed to delineate right between the Doral Arrowwood property and the Doral Greens, as if Doral Greens wasn't being affected by the project.
You mean one of the slides that we showed earlier?
It wasn't one of the slides. It was in the plans that were provided. There was like a 14-page plan, and there was a couple of color layouts.
Okay. Yeah, I think it was in one of the packages, the landscape packages, I believe. But again, it delineates the property,
I
which
think
is
that
the
was in the
subject
summary
of
of
the
the zoning
application.
petition. That's what you're referring to, I think.
But I think he was referring to a specific exhibit that was supplementing that.
Right.
Yeah.
But again, the action is on the property itself, which is the 80-plus acres. Doral Greens and the residential properties, while they're not part of the application, they are being analyzed as, for potential impacts from the application. So the view shed analysis, stormwater, coverage types, landscaping, all of that is being covered, but there's nothing proposed on Doral Greens itself.
It's basically this exhibit, yeah.
I don't know if that's the one that he's.
That's not what I was referring
Yeah,
to.
but I
But I
think
know-
that's
I
the
think we're
one
on
I
the
was,
same page.
I
I
had
think
the
we
same
understand.
question on it, yeah. Okay, let's move on.
All right. Any comments on the description of the proposed action section that goes from pages 2 to 3?
Can't hear you, Jim.
I just have one question about the residences. Is there an age requirement or no?
This is not age restricted.
Sorry.
I'll add to that, and we'll see that in the EIS, whether or not the market will turn in a direction because of the type of unit and the location. I think the data will likely show, while it may not be age targeted from a marketing standpoint, it's more likely than not that's ultimately who would be in these residential units.
The board member, do you folks have this zoning document that was
No.
subsequently was sent by, all right, I think you did send it to everybody.
Yep, it's on the website, and then I emailed it to
Basically,
everybody.
it goes
earlier
through
this week.
it's a basically zoning petition. They explain what they're looking for and why, and they prepared the zoning text amendment in this. So I would suggest you take a look into that.
I didn't see the application.
I haven't seen this at all.
I personally did not have any comments on
Okay.
page 2. I don't know, does anybody else have?
All right, how about the required approvals table, table 1 on
What?
page 4?
Table one,
Moving
page
on to
four.
page 4, table 1, the required approvals table.
Before you jump on the page 4, purpose and need. I mean, you just had one line there, and to me, I think that's the one that we struggle a bit on the last PUD project that we went through. I know the person to my left and myself were kind of asking about justifying the need for the particular project that was being proposed at that time. So I'm kind of curious as how you will present or information justifying the need for the project. You follow me what I'm asking?
I do, and I think that is a section of the EIS. All the sentence is indicating is, we know we need to explain to you the goals and objectives of the
But
app.
it's a section further on.
Correct. All
Excellent.
this is, remember, and maybe we didn't use this
Just an
phrase
outline,
yet,
essentially.
and I want to use it now. This is the table of contents. It's a 24-page
Right.
table of contents, as you would probably all know, to what's going to be a voluminous submission.
Okay,
I promise you there'll be more than one sentence on needs, goals, and objectives.
I hope so.
And I'll just note, if you skip to page 7 and you look at number 3 at the top of the page there, it kind of further elaborates on the statement of the project
yep,
purpose
okay,
and need
good.
to talk about the local housing market and demand, et cetera.
And the demand for hotel rooms, Jen, let's not forget that. We hear that all the time.
Especially high quality.
Bingo.
All right.
What Amy suggested before with regard to your medical office, you did say something about the state approval?
New York State Department of Health.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether there are any accrediting agencies that would be necessary, but there might be. So
So-
that is something I would look into also.
We're happy, so Jen, if in fact we need to identify that as a required approval, we're happy to add that. I think Diego's answer was accurate. From a land use standpoint, we are building a building that is to be used for medical and wellness purposes. If something within it requires accreditation and licensure,
Then it's up to the people that go in
bingo,
there to do it.
that is a
It's
personal
similar,
permit, not a
right.
land use permit.
Think about the fact that there's also a restaurant proposed in the
I brought it up
hotel.
in terms
DOH
of
would have.
awareness, so that the public should understand
Definitely.
that there are conditions that are going to take place there because of the nature of the
Absolutely.
inhabitants of the building
I think,
and the
and that could be.
materials that they're using and the things that will go on that are going to necessitate
what-
hazardous things.
Makes sense, and what we typically do,
People should
again,
know it.
is in the DEIS itself, again, it's not a required approval, but we acknowledge the fact that depending on the tenancy of the
No,
building,
I get that. I
supplemental,
get
but this is
it.
what we would include in the DEIS
right.
itself.
I
A
understand.
statement to that acknowledging the fact that they
No,
might
you made
be
that clear, and
supplemental.
yeah.
But just to talk about the contrary, midway through, could you change the use and just say it's going to be offices? Just plain business offices.
When you say midway, we are suggesting
It could be any kind of
it's
office.
going to be, well, correct, it's going to be office or professional office, which would allow for a medical use.
So it could just be legal offices in the end.
Absolutely. If
Okay.
tons of
That
accountants
That's
show
what
up
I'm-
and
yeah.
say that's.
That isn't clear. At least it
Right, because
wasn't clear to me.
that could be different. I mean, you know.
I think Mr. Cohn's concept, to be fair, and we've said this so I don't want you to get a different impression from what
Right.
he said to the trustees, informally to our neighbors and to staff. The concept is for this to be a wellness-oriented office building.
Right, exactly.
So that is clearly the intention, but the market could dictate, just like any other office building in your village, that it would go in a certain direction.
Okay, it's good to know.
Except my client probably won't rent to that group of accountants he wants medical, so.
And even though it's entitled for 75,000 feet, we think that's a bit much.
Brad, we gotta look for office space somewhere else.
Right down the road at 333.
Okay.
I love it.
You've always got a building for everybody.
Touche, good comeback.
All right, I'm going to skip over the next section, the required elements of the DEIS, because that's just, that's pursuant to SECRA. So if we move on to the general guidelines regarding organization and expected content of the DEIS, does anybody have any comments there?
When you say that your baseline analysis is to assume that the existing Doral Arrowwood Hotel and Conference Center are operational, how are you going to do that if that thing has been closed for 3 years?
I mean, we look at it, we start with existing conditions, but then we assume reoccupation of the building. So the analysis will include, a fully functional
Okay, all right.
hotel building that was on the property.
With
And
300 with 300
correct.
rooms.
All right,
And then we provide
okay.
the comparative analysis from
Okay,
that to the
all right.
proposed
You don't want to
condition.
say traffic goes from 0 to X.
That's
You want to say it
correct.
goes from X to Y.
But we
Yeah.
look at it in all ways, and we provide the information so that you can see the delta and the differences between
All
all
right.
of them.
So the
But out of curiosity, how do you get back to 2019, or 2002 data or something?
We look at, there's historic data that's available. We look at record counts. DOT keeps record information, that we utilize that. But then we also just look at ITE data, the Institute of Transportation Engineers. They provide information on the trip generations associated with uses like this.
So we need to be aware that the existing conditions are really not existing conditions.
The existing conditions are the existing conditions, but then we're going to look at reoccupation of those existing conditions. And
Because
you'll
the
see that
existing
progression.
conditions are not reality.
But you'll see that progression and how it goes through, and the analysis follows that.
Okay, all right. Jennifer, you have to move it along.
All right, moving on, cover sheet and general information, anybody? Hearing nothing, we'll move on to the executive summary and project description. Hearing nothing.
Well, again, in the project description, I'd love to see, and maybe it belongs here versus the introduction, more of a description of what that pond is. Because like I said, I think it's a major feature of the site.
Is it possible for you to include in this section flood zone maps?
That's a level of detail that wouldn't ordinarily be, I see Jen nodding her head, I think. That wouldn't normally be in the introduction, project
Okay.
description. That's a substantive analysis that we're going to do.
Because I
for both-
remember many times somebody on the board always raises the question of the flood zone map.
I promise they will get those exhibits in the section on wetlands.
So
and
that would be
stormwater.
there.
That's where it should
That's
be.
where it
That-
belongs, that's
yeah,
where it will
that's
be.
fine then, as long as you're going to be someplace, yes.
Promise.
Okay, good.
So with regards to the pond, it's going to be an aesthetic item,
Clearly.
but Can you also elaborate eventually on the functionality of the pond from a stormwater management perspective, maybe making it efficient or more efficient, or looking at that, at all those avenues?
We're getting there.
What
Section
I'm-
5
what
and
I-
6.
What I'm envisioning is actually enlarging the pond, making it much more of a feature, and making it something that's very ecologically correct.
Is
It's
No-
actually
no one
a
will be
small
swimming in
lake.
it.
It's really not a pond. It's a small
the
lake.
pond connected to the brook?
Very good.
Yeah.
And the structure I would like to call the lake house.
Well,
Yeah.
Whole
I mean,
idea is to-
It really, if you, yeah.
Right.
Can you replace the golf course with a fishing pier? I'm a fisherman.
Can I put fish in the pond, in the lake? Done.
Thank you.
What kind? Trout?
Let's wait on that.
I think it would be great. I think it would be great to have a little fishing pier.
Let's wait on that.
Just hold your rod and reels
Right?
for a while. You've got a way to go.
Well, I got one.
I got one too.
I'm happy man.
And a rowboat. Nice.
Wow.
Paddle boats.
Okay, should we move on to the next section, section 3?
Can I, Michael, is the pond connected currently to the brook?
By the stream.
There's an outlet. and-
There is an
Oh,
outlet.
yeah.
There is an outlet, and that's why I was asking, is there ways to maybe look at what's happening in the area, look at downstream impacts potentially, and see if there's ways to make things efficient?
And what Mr. Cohen had alluded to was making it bigger, making it more of a feature. It turns into more of an environmental feature. It provides more stormwater management on the property. There's a lot of things that tie into that, all of which would be
I
described.
To
think,
bring more wildlife also.
I think making it bigger, it would be almost a win-win for everybody. I think so, yeah.
But the-
Since we're talking about
Become 8 acres now.
Since we're talking about the lake or the pond, let's skip the next couple sections. I'll go back to those, and let's talk about section 5, which is waters and wetlands, and section 6, which is stormwater, because I think that's what everyone really wants to talk
All
about.
right.
So we'll go back to the
Page
other ones
9.
if we need to.
So, can I comment? Jumping ahead to say 6.3, second paragraph. Analyze and compare the existing and proposed conditions, incorporating upstream tributary watersheds, as well as existing downstream drainage infrastructure capacity and conditions, and the overall adequacy of the system. So when I read that, I was excited, but I've also seen it in a bunch of draft EISs. And I wanted to suggest that we get more specific about what you really are going to study. Because this little Blind Brook watershed has been studied a lot over the years. Recently, you as your engineering firm probably knows this way better than I do. The city of Rye, and they may be a commenter in the public comment process, commissioned a study in May 2022, Ramball Engineering. They defined everything that you have in that, paragraph. In other words, they looked at the whole watershed. Okay. And they identified, in terms of the overall adequacy of the system, the study was done, as you know, because the system is totally inadequate. In other words, there has been loss of life and substantial property damage as a result of flooding events. Most recently in 2021, we had lost 2 citizens of Rybrook to a flooding event. But also, the village is engaged with FEMA to buy out quite a few homeowners in the what's the name, the Brook Lane area. So people are one by one deciding if they want to sell their houses and leave Rybrook. That and just the general interest. So I say that because, and also there was a DEC study done in November of 22, again, outlining the inadequacy of the system. Jumping ahead, I like the idea of enlarging, but it's also, we need to understand more, because what you may be doing is taking a use which was primarily geared for stormwater management, and you're changing it to more of a recreation and stormwater management. Is that correct?
I just want
And.
to make sure you got that "and" in there.
No, which
It
is
would
a-
still
fine.
Serve its original purpose
Right.
and intent, but you would have the supplement.
So it's a I'm going to call it a multi-use impoundment. pond,
Potentially,
lake, whatever.
Potentially.
Well, recreation, even if it's visual, it's recreation, right?
Understood.
If it's paddling, it's recreation. If it's fishing, it's recreation. If it's stormwater management, okay. Now, it's a competing use, which means that if it was just stormwater management, we'd want it to be empty all the time.
Not necessarily. I don't always agree with
Okay,
that.
but
You're
I'm using
speaking
a-
from a storage and volume standpoint. That's not necessarily the
Right.
best thing
I'm
from
sort of
ecological
using an
standpoint.
extreme example.
Yeah. Yes.
If it was just a visual recreation thing, we want it to be full and constant all the time.
Again, I can't agree with your statement 100%, but I understand what
Okay,
you're saying.
what I'm saying is they're competing uses, which is fine.
Yeah.
What I would like to see in the scoping is an explanation that you're going to be exploring those things and explaining the trade-offs that you're proposing to make.
Understood. And without getting into too many details, I agree with you fully with detailing that paragraph a bit more, because I do want to manage the expectation of what's going to be included in that analysis. We are not analyzing Rye or, what's happening all the way downstream in the flooding conditions that exists. To put that onus on this application is extremely challenging. We're going to look at our property and what our property effect has on this watercourse and this watershed. And our responsibility is to mitigate the improvements that we're doing on our property.
How far down are you going to study the impacts?
Again, it's not that we're studying downstream impacts, it's we're studying the effect of what we're doing on site on downstream infrastructure.
Right, but how far?
So what I'm going to do is demonstrate, because again, we've looked at this from a preliminary standpoint, we're demonstrating that we're not going to have an adverse effect on downstream properties by doing certain stormwater improvements on site. It's not that, and this is why I appreciate this comment, and I think we need to provide some clarity in the scope on this, that we could work with Jennifer on as well, is that the analysis is going to be limited to the site itself, looking at its potential impacts downstream. It's not that we are going to the city of Rye and studying a watercourse and seeing what's going in there and that huge tributary that leads to it.
I want to remind the board, and council will pay attention to this comment, I'm sure, secret's governed by a rule of reason. This is not a virgin property, undisturbed. That has to be taken into account by the lead agency. It has to be baked into the scope. Your questions are absolutely appropriate, but Diego's caution on measuring expectations is critical. Because we have a piece of property that's disturbed, had a hotel, a large parking area, significant impervious surface, all of that is extremely relevant into what we are doing. What we're really doing is a delta analysis.
Right.
What was here? What did you all live with? What was a lawful condition at 975 Anderson Hill Road for 30 some odd years? And what are we doing now, and what are the changes that are attributable to that?
Right, but what,
the impacts that are attributable?
let me say to that, I mean, you're envisioning, Mr. Cohen and the team is envisioning a glorious reimagining, I think the word is, of so many things. You're not putting a Holiday Inn in. You're putting a premium hotel, health center, medical center, landscaping, lake. And what I'm looking for, we have 3,300 homeowners, residential homeowners in the village, plus obviously neighboring communities. The stormwater regulations for them, they go in and do a small addition, which is a reimagining of their house, and they have to put in substantial stormwater improvements.
100%.
And if we say, guess what, they're building a multi-million-dollar hotel, gorgeous hotel, and they didn't make a substantial improvement.
That's at a higher elevation than most of the homes in Rybrook.
It's a critical point. We are going to make substantial improvements to the stormwater infrastructure on our property. I cannot sit here and commit and say we are going to correct the flooding issues downstream.
No, that's
that
fine.
happen in
Oh, that's
the Village
fine.
of Rye
But if
as
you-
a result of this project.
But if during the heavy
I can
rains,
assure you, we are going to have substantial stormwater improvements just by the nature of the type of project that Mr. Cohen is proposing here, with the improvements to the lake, with the amenity areas. There's going to be a number of green infrastructure practices, stormwater management systems, all of which will be incorporated into this project to mitigate flow coming off of this property that we control.
That's good
So
to hear.
if during a 25 or 50-year-old rainstorm, you can contain more water in this pond, you in effect are improving the conditions down the stream.
100%.
Yeah, and I think that's all what we are looking. I think that's all.
Well, we'll see. But I mean, I wouldn't mind also if you took into account seasonal variation. In other words, perhaps it could even help more if you lowered the pond during, late fall, winter, early spring, when you're not so focused on the recreation, and then, raise the elevation. Now, I know that could be a little extra on the engineering features of the outlet, but the more variability that you can build in, it could help. So if that's part of the scoping, because if you don't consider it up front, then it's never going to be an option, right?
So we just heard you say it. I have a feeling Jen is probably already putting that in there, yes?
Okay.
With no typos, I would add.
Okay.
And the seasonal variation is a fascinating.
I mean, I'm not saying that's a given, but I mean, yeah.
It's a fascinating
Yeah.
comment to see a paragraph analysis. Does it help?
Yeah, okay.
Data analysis.
Yeah, because just one more comment. Again, this may be the Ramble study, just so you know where some of this is coming from. 3 of the 30 things that the Ramble engineers said had a potential for helping downstream was at the Doral Pond, which you've seen that study, right?
But yeah,
Yeah.
we'll take a look at that.
No, and I'm not trying to have you fix all the downstream flooding.
No, we can't,
Yeah.
but if there is something that could be done and incorporated on site, for instance, making the pond larger, that would have a positive impact on the downstream, that's something that would have. to be
Win-win-win,
discussed. Yes.
yeah, okay.
And I think this is where the village would have to work with the applicant to give him the opportunity to enlarge the pond.
Sure, yeah.
That's what we will do.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Jennifer, do you have the flavor of what we want to include there? Thank you very much. Okay.
I got that. All right, I'm going to skip back real quick to the Section 3, the zoning, land use, and public policy. Did anybody have any
Zoning,
comments?
we're going back.
Yeah, we're going back.
Section 3.
Section
zoning.
3, page 7, zoning, land use, and public policy. Any comments there? Just want to make sure we don't miss any sections. And while you're looking at that, you should know also that Sarah's office, my office, Anthony Oliveri's office, your consulting engineer, all of your consultants are looking at this document too, and will be providing any relevant comments to the Board of Trustees. Staff is also looking at it and providing comments.
Let me ask you, do you think we will need to have, we can always have a second meeting of the month. If we need to have a meeting to finalize this letter before the 28th of May.
We could. I think we're
Chairman is adamant that he
trucking
wants
along
this
pretty
letter
well,
out
though.
by the 28th.
Yeah, absolutely. At this point, I mean, unless you're saying you want to end the meeting now, I think we can resolve everything tonight. I mean, we're getting through a lot of the
Okay,
sections
good.
pretty
All
quickly.
right, good.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, Section 4, geology, soils, and topography, and this is where your steep slopes comes into play.
How much of do you envision cut and fill here?
So, cut and fill analysis, there will be, again, going back to what Charles had included, the property is sloped, right?
Yes.
It goes down towards that pond. We've incorporated that slope into the design of the buildings, benching the buildings into the hillside. All of that is intended to limit disturbance, manage your cuts and fills, and keep material on site. The intention with a property like this, when we have not done a detailed grading plan yet, that's something that would be included in the DEIS, but anytime we go into a project of this size, with land area, we come out with an expectation of a balanced cut and fill. We do not expect to have to import or export a significant amount of material on site. There is too much land area to have to do that. We
You
should be
also
able to
propose
balance
to
it on
process the
site.
material on site.
Process it, in the event that there's rock, they may
Yeah.
process the material, reuse it, but the intention is to keep the material on site.
Okay. All right. So I for one, do not envision difficulty with the steep slopes here.
I think particularly because we heard most of the slopes on the site are manufactured.
Yeah.
Are, not man-made.
Those were burned.
I mean,
that
not
were made
natural.
as part of the golf course.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, moving on, we're going to skip the next two sections because we already talked about
Let
that,
me,
the wetlands and the
before we talk before
stormwater.
about the ponds, there is a pond at the very, very east side of the project. Is that your, or is that the Doral Greens?
There's multiple ponds.
But the one right where, right by the 120, by the Route 120 there.
Yeah, that's all on this property.
Okay. So would there be any work on that pond?
That's part of what, the vision for Doral Greens, the open space in that area.
Okay.
There is work that would be done on those ponds.
But that pond is not connected to the Blind Brook.
No, that's on the other side of the property.
Okay, yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
everything's interconnected ultimately, but no, that is not here in
Okay.
this area.
All right.
Do you have to do a special, since part of the property drains, let's say to Connecticut, do you have to do separate studies for that?
Yeah, the stormwater pollution prevention plan would include an analysis of the overall property, and we look at the different watersheds and the design points. So
Because you have
the
2
portion
watersheds.
that's- Yeah, the portion that's going to the east will be looked at. There'll be stormwater improvements that are needed there. But again, that area is a little bit different because we don't have new
Right.
development over there in the
Right.
sense of impervious areas
Okay.
and things like that. Most of that is on the west side of the
Okay.
Okay.
All right, moving on to section 7 on page 11, vegetation and wildlife.
Any endangered species on the site? What was that?
Sedge wren was a bird that was identified on the EAF mapper. Sedge wren, I don't know.
Did somebody import that bird?
It's a nail darter.
But that was the only one identified on the mapper.
Just one bird? Or the type of birds?
There'll be information in the EIS on this.
There's a lot of coyotes lately, but they're not endangered, right?
No.
Okay.
All right, moving on to section 8, visual resources and community character. So this, I forget who raised it. Was it Amy? About the leaf on, leaf off.
Yes.
So this section clarifies that there will be photographs taken of the leaf off condition.
I think we need to identify the vantage points. I think that's very important.
Yeah, and I think, Diego, you mentioned that some photos have already been taken, right?
We can share those. We try to be strategic with the locations and get them at very specific points. And if there's more that are needed, we can get them. Obviously, we're coming into the season now. Leaf on condition is essentially there, but we've gotten a bunch, and we're happy to provide those locations. It's the issue.
We think we have a pretty good idea of the locations that would be appropriate, but we're all ears. If you have something that we have not thought of, we obviously are quite mindful of who our neighbors are.
You know,
what the
I
vantage points are.
envision that during the public hearing on the project, when the board conducts, when we get to the site plan approval or
Yes.
master plan, the people from different point of view are going to say, well, how does it look from my house? And it would be nice to have, those views from strategic locations.
Understood.
I can envision 6, 7 strategic locations. Couple from the Anderson Hill Road, you have maybe 1 or 2 from the Sun Homes.
But that's what we have. So
You
we'll
have
give-
that, yes.
We'll give you the location map, and then
Yeah.
we'll go from there.
Yeah,
And Mr. Cohn is intending to have meetings with various neighboring groups. We've already started that, so, yeah,
okay, excellent.
we've reached out to Mr. Bradbury for a list of contacts of various neighboring groups.
I don't know if this is visual or community character, but I noticed I searched the document, with a search term for lighting. Nowhere do you really have a section describing what lighting, which is becoming a bigger thing in some communities now.
It's a valid point. There's going to be a lighting plan. There will be a lighting analysis, and if it is omitted from the scope right now, we can add that for sure.
Photometric plan would be.
Yeah.
Which, sort of a segue over to perhaps this might be a village responsibility, but I noticed when you drive at night from, say, White Plains up Anderson Hill Road, you go through a very well-lit section until you hit basically the property line with, that is the, the golf course / your property. It becomes very dark, which I don't know, that might be a feature.
Could be some street lighting that we.
Yeah, I don't know whether,
We've got a terrific, internationally renowned lighting designer.
Okay.
That will be involved, who is
okay.
unbelievable.
And perhaps that's a village thing, and perhaps the community doesn't want lighting on the street. I don't know, but it just seems like,
Wants to provide the street light.
I don't know.
I don't know, do they do that?
Does the airport
advisement.
specify lighting as far as the building, on the
I
building
don't know.
itself?
There are going to be requirements, certainly.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
We don't want it to be dark and foreboding.
So just a line saying that lighting is being considered somewhere, something,
Be
yeah.
integrated in the
Yeah.
design.
Good point.
Jen, where are we?
Yep, we're moving on. That's where we are. All right, we're moving on to section 9 on page 13, which is socioeconomic and fiscal impacts.
I think you talked about that you were going to use the demographic data that's in a comprehensive plan. I remember a couple of months back, we were discussing the revision of a comprehensive
We're
plan.
still discussing it.
And somebody went back and forth. He said, you cannot use that demographic data. It's 15 years old. So you may have to come up with something that's more current.
Which is one of the recommendations we made
Yeah.
on the
Yeah.
comprehensive plan.
Understood.
Yeah.
Any other comments on that section?
Sorry, I wasn't speaking into the microphone. Any other comments on that section?
Maybe look at the impact that it will have on the local schools.
That's in the next section.
That's the next section.
That's
Community.
Oh, it's in the
facilities,
community
that's
facilities,
section,
yeah,
section 10.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So we can move on to section 10, which is on page 15, called community facilities. And this is
Obviously,
where.
the height would be concerned to the fire department. Obviously, that's
Exactly,
already
yeah.
presumably on the scope, right?
There's an emergency services
Also,
response
You
section.
know, you did, as I read it, it was explained, the number of calls for all police, fire, and EMS may very likely necessitate increasing staff, and that's an extremely important thing because it's at the north end of the village. So that's something I really would like to see
Understood.
thoroughly done. as
Michael,
thorough-
if the building is designed to the New York State Building Code, I imagine the fire department would be then on board, that's,
They are required to be on board now.
So what we do on a project like this is we have an emergency services task force. It's myself, it's Mr. Bradbury's fire department, EMS, a number of team players, Public Works. So we have a whole team who will review this
Review, okay.
and offer comments
Right, they did
as
that-
far
they
as
do that on all the
apparatus,
projects,
equipment, approach, emergency response,
Absolutely.
hurricanes. Like we try to vision things that we've gone through over the 20
Right.
or 30 years of being here. So we'll review it and we'll offer up comments. Hey, maybe add a hydrant here. Hey, maybe if you could lower a roof here, that way the fire truck could have a staging area to put up a ladder. So that's the kind of stuff that we'll
Okay,
start to
fine.
Right.
implement as the plans get developed.
Right.
With regard to the scoping document, do we need to elaborate anything more than what's in here?
I think this is very thorough.
Yeah,
think
I
this is
thought so
pretty
too. I didn't
thorough.
have any comments myself, yes.
Yeah.
Moving on, section 11 is infrastructure and utilities, and that's on page 17. So this is where we talk about
This
water
is-
supply and
that's
sanitary
where
sewer and
Con
energy
Edison,
usage.
Needs to be thoroughly involved as to whether or not they're willing to supply gas, which is a problem.
you're a pre-existing site, so.
And the moratorium's
They just-
moratorium's been
And-
lifted
They
as
lifted the
well.
moratorium.
You do know that water for Rybrook is somewhat from Westchester Waterworks and also from Greenwich
Yeah, well,
and from Connecticut, yeah.
both of those will get analyzed. We do have a water section, and then we do have the energy usage, which covers electricity and gas. We'll file projects with them, we'll serve letters, we'll go through that whole process.
Now, do you envision to have your own substation on site?
Substation, I would say, I can't answer that definitively, I can't imagine that being the case.
Okay.
We'll have transformers, we'll get,
Yeah.
we'll get services and things, but to have a substation on site.
When
no,
I
that
say
won't
substation, I don't mean the high voltage, I do mean the distribution.
Yeah,
When you-
I mean, you'll have equipment,
Switchgear
ATS
and all that.
switches, ATS switches, transformers, all of that equipment will get planted.
One comment that I jotted down here, with the emergency service in case of electric
Generators?
outage. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it would be important to indicate the type of generator, the location of the generator, because it does pose later on the question of the noise and the maintenance and testing of it, and the pollutants. Some generators, depending on the site, do have some sort of a pollution controls. So indicate that. That's more for a site plan review, but I think you may want to include something here.
Okay.
Suggestion, probably already on this, but water supply, my understanding is previous large projects in the north side of the village, the company has said they were starting to stretch the resources that they had in terms of pressure, pumping capacity. There's a pumping station evidently across the road from your site. So you're already on that?
Yeah, so we'll, again, based on the proposed buildings, we'll come up with a water demand, we'll come up with fire flow demand. That information gets submitted to the water company. They run the analysis, and if there are any issues, then obviously there starts to become discussion with improvements that needed to be made to supply the project. That's all covered, and that's something that we would flush out during the
I
DEIS
would also
process.
talk to Kingfield about that and see how just how they're doing with water. And
Have you been in contact with the water company?
Not with the water company, no.
No, not yet, okay.
And that I'll note, that's a process that your consulting engineers will be involved in reviewing as well. So Anthony Oliveri, James
Utilities in
Natarelli
general.
from AI Engineers will
Okay.
Yeah.
be, on top of that review as well.
And you have broad view in your sites. I mean, within Purchase College, they just did a very large development with 400 residents that are just coming online right now. So,
Yeah, and that's not I don't believe we specifically identified that in there, but we can talk about how that gets incorporated from a traffic
it's
standpoint.
easy to miss because I think it didn't go through any community planning board. It was just all done through the state. Yeah.
We are
But it's a
planning
substantial
on-
development
We are
there.
planning on meeting
Yeah.
with SUNY Purchase. Mr. Bradbury provided me, I think,
Okay.
today with contact information, so we are planning on meeting with them.
I mean, it may be helpful because presumably they just kind of had to go through the same sort of thing, even within the state.
Yeah,
Yeah.
with the water and everything else.
With the water, yeah.
Traffic, always a topic dear to our heart.
Say that again?
Traffic.
Oh, yes.
For last 20 years, I have been on the board. Every project that came before us, everybody said, no additional traffic. No additional traffic impacts. Took me yesterday from on the Ridge Street to cross the light about almost 11 minutes.
to cross Westchester Avenue.
Western and Bowman, and those two lights are never synchronized. They never
that's
And
school.
then, while you are really upset now, then you go about 500 feet, there is a light for the Lenny Bagel. That one is not synchronized. Then you have to stop for that one. So I know that the report is going to come out that there is no additional traffic impacts.
But don't you, and you also have to remember that the highways feed King Street. Anderson Hill, feeds King Street, and we only have two major thoroughfares in Rye Brook, and that's Lincoln Avenue and King Street, and, Ridge Street, but that's not a major thoroughfare. But King Street and Lincoln Avenue are.
But you do have a change condition now. If I'm not mistaken, you have a second additional driveway into your project, right?
Correct. There's the secondary access off of Anderson Hill.
Right, so there would be, in effect, 3 Is it 2 or 3 roads going into
For us,
the?
one for Doral Greens.
So that's 3.
It would be
Where
three.
right now is how many we have right now? 2. So
You'd be
they,
having a separate entrance for the medical,
It's I wouldn't call it necessarily separate, they're still interconnected, but there is a
Direct
secondary exit, a direct one into the medical office building.
And that would be further west?
You can see it on the plan right
Yeah.
here. It's right here, so if I point to this, this is the main entrance that exists today.
Yeah.
It's in the same location. Here's
To
the
the-
other
yeah,
entrance.
okay.
Again, direct access, but it's interconnected.
Yeah,
So
right.
if you came in this entrance, you still get here. You come in here, you could get to
got it.
the new building as
but
well.
now when you leave in, especially when you leave in from 2 different points. So there is an additional traffic issue there.
And that'll be looked at, the site
Yes.
driveways will all be looked at, interconnected between the two, and obviously there'll be discussion on what the operations are.
Do you envision any road improvements outside the project site?
Too early to say.
Yeah, I think we need to do the analysis, provide the DEIS, and that'll get concluded in the document.
Again, the good news for us empirically is it was a 300-key hotel
Right.
with a tremendous number of functions. I know I went to a lot of functions at Doral Arrowwood. So if we were coming in for the first time with this quantity of vehicular movement, admittedly, I'd be far more concerned about the traffic section and being able to get past the notion of no significant adverse impact. Yes, we're adding some residential. We're going to have slightly different peak hours. The office will have a peak. The residential will have a peak, especially if it is more of an age-targeted sense residential, even if it isn't marketed that way. And then there's a hotel. So give us the chance to do the analysis.
All
We
right.
know that we're going to spend some time on this. We get it.
And I'll just note also, because the intersection of Anderson Hill Road and King Street is in Connecticut, we included as an interested agency, Greenwich and Connecticut DOT, just in case, once they do their traffic study, there's any signal timing modifications or something like that, recommended.
They're in the scope as one of the interested.
Anderson is a county road, right? Anderson Road is county. County road. Is it
No,
state?
Anderson Hill Road used to be a county road up until the early 2000s.
So it's state
It's
road now?
village,
Village.
What is?
Anderson,
Yeah.
Village,
yeah.
I'm sorry, what is?
5 years now.
Anderson Hill Road is a village road.
Yes, but King Street is the state, is a
State.
King
combined
Street is state, and the
State.
intersection of Anderson Hill
Oh, I did
and
not know that. I thought it was a
King
county road,
is in Connecticut,
Connecticut.
yeah.
Yeah, half of the, one side of King Street is Connecticut and the other half is New York.
When Anderson Hill
Typical
Road,
of
when it
New York.
goes to, it goes through Harrison, does it not? Or White Plains? Oh, and Purchase, so it becomes the village road all the way through.
Well, it's also
Up
part of
until the village line.
Yeah, but then
and
the
it-
next village takes it over. It's not a county
town of
road.
Harrison.
I don't know if it's the town or the county there, but it's not the village. Once you cross over the village line, it's not the village
But
anymore.
it's only a part of village, because it becomes Harrison and purchases the town of Harrison. And then White Plains, actually.
So that
All right.
gets you through 12.
Yeah, so now we're on 13, which is hazardous materials.
Yeah.
And then if there's no comments there, we're moving on into construction.
Section 14.
Yep, section 14 at the bottom of 21.
And I'm sure, without a doubt, you'll have a very specific and mammoth construction plan.
Before we leave the number 12, you said in the very last paragraph, identify improvements to the roadway network. If the improvements are required, who will be responsible for it? Would it be village or would it be applicant?
I don't know if she was going to answer.
Yeah, the applicant. I mean, any offs,
Who wants to do them, we have no objection. I will state that emphatically for the record.
did she
Whether
say the
Mr. Cohn
applicant-
insists, we still will have no objection.
We have no problem in setting up an escrow account on that behalf.
I think we need a light at King Street and Betsy Brown, so the applicant is responsible for that, right?
I think you're right, actually.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
all right, and then the last section is
About the hazardous
construction.
material.
On construction?
construction. Yep, do you have a construction comment?
I'll probably be asked, I'm not saying this is my personal issue, but about like green techniques, I mean, some of the LEEDs things have a lot to do with how something is constructed, not just how it ends up. I mean, are you going to be going for any kind of LEEDs designation on the building, or? Okay,
At least gold, I would think.
okay.
We'll also, there are other things we'll do as well.
Good. Good.
That'll, I
100%, it's all about the.
think the trustees will love,
Yeah,
will love that.
excellent.
Yeah,
That's
trustees
great.
will love it.
Good for you.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, now, one of the last sections here is the alternative section, which is actually, I don't know, I think
to me
one of the
that's
most,
key alternative.
it's really
That's
one
the
of the
key
most
section,
important
yeah.
sections in this whole scoping outline. So the alternatives being, different variations of the project that the applicant is required to study in addition to the proposed project. So we always have the no action alternative, what happens if nothing happens here. Then we have the proposed project that the applicant is putting forth. And then we need to identify reasonable alternatives for the applicant to also study. So I'll just give you an example, like for the 900 King Street application, you'll remember they did a reduced height alternative, a reduced density alternative. I think there was a reduced square footage alternative. What the applicant has proposed here as one of the alternatives is a maximum residential development under the existing PUD regulations. So what could be studied, what's the maximum that could be developed here under the current code?
Okay. I think there is one alternative always has to be to develop within existing PUD regulations. I was going to ask the applicant, but I'm afraid to, I would love to see just as an alternative to have the alternative where the hotel does not have residential units in it, but have the residential building, a larger building to incorporate the residential units that were on the top 2 floors of the hotel.
So,
If the height becomes an issue, consideration. Folks, I'm just throwing that as an alternative. Let's see whether it's worth this.
It goes against what we're trying to create,
Okay.
which is the hotel services, the idea of people that want to live in the hotel and have
Right,
hotel
and
services.
use, right, exactly.
Okay.
And I would prefer that the other building, which may not be built at the same time, be
Oh,
the size it is and not gigantic.
to put it in secret terms, I hear your suggestion. It's inconsistent with the applicant's goals and objectives, and secret tells us that we are supposed to study alternatives that are consistent with our goals
Okay.
and objectives.
Can you achieve your objective if the height becomes the major concern? And we're just talking now. Can you achieve the hotel with the residential units, but with the reduction in height?
We've studied that. We had it taller, and we have brought it down to what we think is appropriate
Okay.
for the project.
All right.
We like the height. I think
Okay.
you will too.
All right. I did say I like the concept, yeah.
We want this to be successful for
Okay.
all of us.
All right.
Durrell Arrowwood failed. We don't want to use that words anymore.
I think another alternative is, and I think you have included that one, is the develop the site with the residential units. That's just an alternative, just for a comparison purpose. I'm not saying that if you need to look at some of the alternatives, and I think you mentioned that as 15 too.
That is listed,
It's listed there, yeah.
it's listed as an alternative.
Yeah, you have it listed, yes, yes.
We had originally explored that. That was the early idea, but we wouldn't build 70 townhomes in any reasonable period of time, and I'm a little afraid of it. I think what people today want to live on one level and not have to go up and down.
Mhm.
You know, as we get older, we start worrying about falling, and this is all about health and wellness.
I'm looking at Kingsfield, and that to me was a very successful development.
This is more of a.
They have
remember,
elevators.
This is
They have
this is
They
a,
have elevators, yeah.
In the Kingsfield?
In Kingsfield, yeah.
this is a lodge concept.
Okay. All right. So what alternatives are we going to ask them to provide in the DEIS? I think we need to agree on some alternative. We don't want them to go through 50 different alterations. It's time and money, and I don't think it's going to serve the purpose. So I think we need to agree on, one or two or three alternatives that, for comparison purposes.
Comparing what?
What alternatives do we want you to consider as part of the EIS?
If you're looking, it looks like you're looking to me for recommendation.
No, I'm not looking at you as a recommendation. I'm looking for your reaction.
Yeah, I mean, I think, honestly, I think a reduced height alternative would be a reasonable thing to study. I know we heard from the applicant tonight that they did take a look at that, but I think that vetting that out through the EIS process would make sense, especially given that the zoning petition request.
I personally think that's going to have to be included. I think it will help the project to move along.
Well, how much is the height difference from what's the variance we're talking?
Well, right now, the zoning, the highest there is about, 45 feet? And-
Right, no, but I thought it was like
and
less
they're-
than a story, they're going over the limit.
No, they are proposing 98 feet.
No.
Are you asking for zoning code amendment 98 feet, is it
That's
not?
on the back of the site,
Okay.
down the hill, right?
Yeah, let's,
But
down
that's
the
what I asked you
slope.
before, where is the view from? I asked you that specifically. I wanted to understand
it
that,
all
yes.
depends on,
Why don't
again,
you show the image?
why don't
Yeah.
we go back
Let's take a look
to
at the,
cross-section, elevation, and height, and that,
95
it's the
feet.
96 feet is the measurement of where, that's the way that the height is calculated based on your code, the average. grade
That's the highest point,
calculation.
yes.
That is the height calculation that needs to be done, and that's what's being.
Plus the auxiliary equipment that you're gonna have on top of
There's
the
stuff
roof.
that's
Yes,
above and beyond
yes,
that
yes.
excludes chimneys and things like
I
that.
think you
But you
say no.
only exceed the current limits by some small amount, right? No?
It's,
No,
it's the existing codes. What's that? I'm sorry.
The existing regulation
I
is,
think we gotta distinguish the difference between two things. One, what the code permits, and two is what was out there now. The 10-foot or 20-foot difference was an elevation separation based on what's out there now and how high we are above that. We are pushing this building further down the hillside.
I was going to
It
say,
sits at a lower
Right.
elevation,
you're
but it's
taking it
not
down the hill.
projecting in the air much higher than what Doral is right now. I think
Okay.
that's what David was alluding to.
Okay, good. And how much,
How it's measured based
Okay.
on your code is a different analysis.
Okay.
And that's where the 96 feet
Make
come
sure
into
everybody
play.
on the board heard that point about,
So-
in terms of actual.
height above the ground?
Are you able to put that into a schematic, and that way the board could see it a little better, maybe pull it apart? Thank you.
I think you also need to revise your language in the zoning code amendment, because that number just is that raw number sticks out like a sore tooth.
But that is your building height that is being proposed.
Yes.
That's based on the
an honest
code
number.
calculation, that's the number.
Yes. And a lot of people are going to react to that.
And
But
our
that's fine.
job will be to explain it, and I'm
Yes.
confident.
Yes.
I'm confident that in context, we can explain it,
Yes.
because once people understand we've moved the building back,
Down.
down the hill, that was done very consciously. We knew
Right.
height was going to be a concern from day
I-
one.
You actually made a point of that at the board meeting.
Right.
When you presented the first time, right.
We know it's a big ask, but I think it's a big bonus for us. It makes it unique.
I think the location of the building, at least from three sides, is not going to be as obtrusive as you would probably think on the surface.
Correct.
Yes.
Could make it look smaller.
Remind that you have to keep the lobby.
Thank you. Can I quote you?
He just wants fish.
But I honestly, I think for the project, in terms of the alternatives, my suggestion it would be that you do prepare at least two alternatives. Something to the code and something a little lower than what you have now.
I mean, I personally think the community, if they really thought about it, when they really understand the project, I think the height is going to be a red herring in a sense. I hate to see a ton of study go into that. I'd rather see a study go into what can be done to reduce runoff from the site, like reducing road widths. Some of the communities are saying the building code is requiring the roads to be too wide. What if we made all the roads narrower? What if we used more green pathways? what if we did some sort of super green alternative? And it cost like 3% more, but it, did something, it reduced the runoff at the.
Don, this project is give you so much open space. The ratio of building to open space is significant.
Right, but.
It's very good.
But to put so much of a study on what may end up being, when we really understand it, a small height difference, really just talking about a lot of chimneys and roof variation, which makes it look nice, which there's nobody in the extra space.
That's correct.
Habiting that
It's
extra
lofty
tall
space.
space.
That's right. It's air.
And then we're going to start comparing it to the tallest building in Rybrook, which is where, down on 800. Okay. And is it comparable in height to that? Is it?
I don't know.
Okay.
I couldn't. Is that a tall building? It's
But-
the Robert Weiss's RPW.
I mean, I'd rather.
Represent that property owner, don't make us say anything bad about it.
No, I don't know. I'm just wondering whether the height thing is the biggest thing to study, the delta.
I think we need to, I think we need to, as a board,
I think the green
recommend
thing is a good thing.
to the Board of Trustees if we want them to, which alternatives do we want them to consider? And I'm open.
Yeah, one of the alternatives could definitely be related to green infrastructure practices. To your point, reduced roadway width. There's a lot of things that we need to comply with from your code standpoint.
Right.
So we have roadway width requirements, we have parking space requirements,
Right.
we have things like that. An alternative that looks at that could say, okay, if we reduce the roadway width requirements to 20 feet as opposed to 24,
Right.
what are the potential
Right.
impacts? That's
Well, you will
easy.
Or
have
the
to
parking
comply with
spaces.
The ability for fire
When
trucks to
I
get in
saw
there,
the number of hotel rooms, sorry, go ahead.
You need, I was just saying, you have to comply with the ability for fire trucks
100%.
for turnarounds.
Yeah,
So no
but
matter what you do, that has to be
that governs certain things.
Primary.
Absolutely.
But
The
parking,
lot,
that
yeah.
parking lot, obviously it's huge. You were going to put even more parking in, I guess, per the code?
A lot of it is code-driven, so that's one of the discussions in the analyses where we could look at some reduced parking. We still need to make sure it works functionally for the site.
Right.
We don't want to have issues with parking because of the ballroom, because of the events and things
Right.
like that. But there are opportunities where you could do tandem parking in certain spaces.
Reduce widths or something.
I mean, I agree with you that Arrowwood always had a sea of parking lots whenever you went there. If you wanted us to study an alternative with land-banked parking, where we took a percentage of parking associated with the hotel and we land-banked it, and we did not come in and pave that and turn that into impervious surface, we're happy to analyze that and figure out a mechanism with council to securitize possibly building future parking if it's needed.
Yeah.
There could be, an alternative where we do grass pave in a certain area, something like that, where you could periodically use it for parking in a certain event, but most of the time it's green space.
Okay, let me ask the board, what is our position with regard to the alternatives, with regard to the height of the proposed buildings? Do you folks feel that we would like to see an alternative where there is a reduced height, or you want to stay with the way we are? It's our recommendation to the board.
Yeah.
We have to, I want to move on.
My personal thing is, from what I've seen so far, now this may not reflect, community input. I'd love to see the community comments section, but to me, I'm more for land use, greening. We're even talking about forming a new ad hoc green building, Yeah.
I think we covered that. I
Okay.
know that. I just want to deal now with the simple question, do we want to have an alternative where we want to see a reduced building height?
I think we'd be remiss not to do so, especially without seeing all the pictures.
I'm sorry.
Especially without seeing all the pictures, I think we should have a alternative with a reduced building height.
I think it would move the project along much faster.
Mr. Cohen said yes, he said yes.
How much faster?
We can have 2 meetings a month. Depends how quickly you're going to open that pond with the fishing.
Generally, the applicant agrees to a reduced height alternative.
Same number of letters.
So,
Got it.
It's a marketing term, like.
I think no action alternative, I don't think that serves any purpose.
It has to, you have to.
You have to have it?
Yeah, it's required. It's,
So
we have
what
to
do you
do
want
it.
to do? You're going to leave those monstrosities
It's,
there
you know, for
forever?
baseline purposes mainly, but yeah, we have to do it.
Green benefits, right?
I'd like to see a green alternative. I mean, I think that's, again, a win-win. Presumably, it's like, it can save some money.
So
and-
we're gonna do the,
Well, we want to do the right thing.
Right,
do the-
right.
We need to have this project be definitive for what it's going to be.
Right.
And we're not looking to cut corners. We want to be
Right.
environmentally super responsible.
Right,
So
but a
Jennifer-
parking lot that nobody uses is terrible
Jennifer,
for
do you
everybody.
understand what they mean by green alternative? You do. So
So
we can, yeah.
summarizing, we're going to give you the mandatory no action alternative. We're going to give you 15.2, the max residential development that we had already proposed. We're going to give you an additional new alternative with a reduction in maximum allowable height, and we're going to give you a final new alternative, which is a souped-up green sustainability alternative.
What would you do there?
Reduce road widths.
Reduce road widths, land bank parking, additional
right.
stormwater measures that may not have otherwise been produced,
Right.
gray water recycling.
But I think that would be nice to do that. I honestly almost don't
You're gonna
think that.
sign up for that alternative?
I almost don't agree, that that's an alternative. I would expect that. I think that would be,
but
Mr.
it's
Cohn
not-
said
it's
it
not
would
in
be a
the code.
green,
But right now,
None of those things are
those
required.
things are not required and they're not included in the proposed action, so.
Building code doesn't require the green
Well, no,
infrastructure.
can I just chime in on that? I think I have the in-between on that. What we're proposing is a sustainable design. It is a green practice. However, it's compliant with your ordinance. I think what's being asked is to look beyond that. What can we do that might violate a zoning ordinance requirement, i.e. width of parking spaces, depth of parking spaces, width of your roadways, things like that, that would increase the sustainable features on the property. It's not that we're not doing it already, it's we're doing it based on the limitations of your code. Now we're gonna look beyond that, and maybe that'll get incorporated into the zoning amendment. Maybe that will
Set a new
be
standard.
looked at a little bit differently as opposed to what's
I,
being
I-
proposed. That's all.
I guess, I envision, reducing the width of the roadways. How is that going to benefit anybody?
Less runoff.
Less pavement.
That's a lot of
100%.
impervious.
100%.
Less impervious surface, more green, more plantings.
If you
It
told
is,
me
but it's
less
still
of the
better
roads,
from a
yes,
runoff
but,
standpoint, even though it's
you
just-
still,
yeah.
Length,
It depends.
yeah,
that extra, all that length of roadway, it's a big thing.
1 foot even.
yeah, but you still have to have the roadways that's safe to travel on.
Yeah, they're safe.
Let us study it, let us study.
Yeah.
Let us do the math and see.
But I look forward to your suggestions, so please.
Well, I mean, the thing is this.
No, try to get
you
them
know,
up front. I don't want to come in late.
You
Oftentimes,
seem very into this, and I appreciate
I'm
hearing about it.
trying to be a supporter and
No,
get
no, no, I
the
appreciate
comments
that.
out up front. Yeah.
But please feel free to suggest, let us
Okay.
know.
Yeah.
Okay,
I welcome it.
okay, appreciate it.
Anything else?
We've gone through the entire secret scoping outline.
Okay.
So I've taken copious notes based on your discussion. So as long as you don't have anything further to add, you can be confident that I have all of your comments in my notes. I'll reduce this to writing.
When would you draft a memo for Robert?
I can have that ready for Rob to review probably next week, and I'll include John.
Send a copy to the board.
Yep,
to the
I'll include a
board
copy
members
to
so
the
we can-
board. So as long as you
Do we
make
need
a,
to send it to the applicant, the fact that they were a participant here?
once you've finalized it.
Once we finalize
Yeah,
it.
so
Okay.
what you would do to finalize that tonight is make a motion to authorize me to prepare this written memorandum
intention to do
based
that.
on your discussions to be finalized with the chairman and the acting chairman with any additional comments by the board.
Mr. David, you've been listening to all of this.
All right, now recite it back, David.
Do you have any parting words for us?
I do not have any comments at this point in time.
Okay?
Inappropriate. This is-
No, but I don't mean on the substance, I mean on the approach.
I think what you're doing is great, which is you've gone section by section.
Okay.
Made comments.
Okay.
That's what you're supposed to be doing.
Okay.
Jennifer will not lead you astray.
All right, thank you. As long as you're happy.
And Rob.
John, I worry about your comments all the time.
Well, sometimes if elephant is in the room, I tend to call it out. It's not usually the best thing to do politically, but, somebody has to do it. Yeah. Gentlemen, as I said at the beginning, I love the information that you have submitted. I think you are upfront with us, which we appreciate, and can only lead to good results.
Sounds good.
We appreciate the way that you're approaching this with us.
Yes.
We know that for real estate, any real estate development to be successful, it needs to be embraced by the community.
Yes.
And we want to be a good citizen and a good neighbor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate that very much.
We appreciate that.
Yeah, that's, we all like that.
And we want it to look good. Great.
Okay, now
You
can
can
we
just-
have a motion to, thank you, gentlemen, very much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Motion for Jennifer to prepare the memo, for Mr. Chairman to sign the memo and submit that to the Board of Trustees with the planning board comments and the scoping document.
Moved.
Second.
Mr. Crum?
Yes, as long as we look at it first.
Yes. Mr. Mendelson?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Richmond?
Yes.
Yes. Ms. Schoen?
Yeah, I think that the motion should include to be approved by the chairman and the board as well.
Or being by email. You're saying by email comments.
We cannot approve it. We have to have a meeting if the board has to approve it. I would just like us to agree that for the chairman to sign off on it. But you circulated.
Or
yes.
maybe find a way to do it without voting.
Yes.
Without voting. Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Okay,
Okay,
because
then-
we can.
then I make
yeah,
that motion
We
again.
cannot vote without being here present.
So you're taking away the motion for that, right? I mean, you're not,
I withdraw the voting
yes,
part
okay.
of the motion.
So, yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. Chairman Grzan?
Yes.
Thank you.
With that, I think we finished what we agreed that we would do.
Motion to adjourn then.
And motion to adjourn.
Moved.
And everybody have a good evening.
Thank you all. We will see you again
Thank
soon.
you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll be all good friends by the time, or not.